The silver chains burned against Sera's wrists as consciousness clawed its way back. Above her, the blood moon hung like a crimson eye in the star-drunk sky, casting everything in shades of violence. She was bound to stone, ancient, carved stone that hummed with power she could feel in her bones. Her pack stood in a circle around her. Her pack. The wolves she'd healed, fed, protected. They chanted in the old tongue, words that made her skin crawl and her wolf whimper deep inside. Alpha Marcus stood at her feet, ceremonial dagger glinting in the moonlight, his eyes holding a hunger that had nothing to do with the hunt. Finally awake, little healer? His voice was silk over steel. Good. You need to be conscious for this to work. Sera's throat felt raw. Marcus, why are you doing this? Because you're not what you pretend to be. He traced the dagger's edge along her arm, just shy of cutting. Sweet, weak little Sera. Always hiding in the shadows, tending wounds, keeping your head down. But I know what you really are. The chanting grew louder. Sera recognized some of the wolves, Sera from the kitchens, who she'd helped through 3 difficult pregnancies. Old Henrik, whose arthritis she eased every winter. They wouldn't meet her eyes. I don't understand. But even as she said it, power stirred beneath her skin. Power she'd spent 23 years suppressing, hiding, pretending didn't exist. Marcus smiled, and it was all teeth. You carry the bloodline of the original moon goddess. Every drop of your blood, every beat of your heart, it's a threat to everything I've built. The world tilted. That's impossible. Your parents died for that bloodline. And now. He raised the dagger. Now you'll die for it too. Memory hit her like a physical blow. Promise me you'll stay hidden, her mother had whispered, blood on her lips as the flames consumed their house. Promise me you'll never let them know what you are. She'd thought her parents died in a rogue attack. She'd been 12, terrified, grateful when Marcus took her in. Grateful when he gave her purpose as a healer. Grateful when he matched her with David, even though her wolf had never stirred for the beta. David. Where was? Looking for your mate? Marcus's laugh was cruel. David's the one who told me about your little secret. About how you refused to help him poison the pack elders. How you threatened to expose his plans. The betrayal cut deeper than any silver blade. David, who'd held her through nightmares. David, who'd promised they'd be mated under the next full moon. David, who'd known exactly where she'd be tonight because she'd told him about her need to gather moonflowers in the thornwood. He used me. The words tasted like ash. He used you perfectly. Though I suspect he didn't realize what you truly were until it was too late. Marcus positioned the dagger over her heart. The blood of the moon goddess, spilled on the sacrificial stone during a blood moon eclipse. It will transfer your power to me. Every gift, every ability, mine to command. The chanting reached a crescendo. Power that had slumbered her entire life began to wake, unfurling like a flower made of starlight and fury. Her skin began to glow with soft, silver light. No. The word came out stronger than she felt. I won't let you. You don't have a choice. Marcus raised the dagger, moonlight dancing along its edge. The silver chains burned hotter against her skin. The ancient binding stones began to crack under the pressure of her awakening power. And then everything exploded. Light erupted from her skin like a supernova. The silver chains shattered. 3 pack members closest to the altar simply ceased. Not killed, unmade, as if her power had reached into them and decided they no longer deserved to exist. The ancient binding stones split down the middle with sounds like breaking worlds. Marcus staggered backward, the dagger falling from nerveless fingers. Impossible. The chains should have. The chains were silver. Sera sat up slowly, power crackling around her like lightning. Silver binds wolves. But I'm not just a wolf, am I? The remaining pack members scattered, but she barely noticed. Her attention was fixed on Marcus, on the man who'd murdered her parents and stolen her life. Power built in her chest, hot and bright and hungry for justice. She raised her hand, light gathering at her fingertips. A howl split the night. Every head turned toward the treeline. There, massive and magnificent in the blood moon's glow, stood a wolf unlike any Sera had ever seen. Black as midnight, with silver eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Scars marked his muzzle and flanks, old battles fought and won. The wolf padded into the clearing with the confidence of an apex predator. Every instinct Sera possessed screamed danger, but beneath that was something else. Something that made her wolf sit up and take notice for the first time in her life. Alpha. Not just any alpha. The alpha. The kind of dominant male that other wolves submitted to instinctively. The black wolf stopped at the edge of the broken circle and shifted. The man who stood in the wolf's place was tall, broad-shouldered, and absolutely lethal. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and those same silver eyes studied the scene with predatory intelligence. Scars marked his chest and arms, a warrior's marks. He wore jeans and nothing else, and moved with the fluid grace of someone who'd never known defeat. When he spoke, his voice was whiskey and smoke and midnight promises. Mine. One word. But it hit Sera like a physical blow, making her newly awakened power surge in response. Her wolf, silent for so long, suddenly threw back her head and sang. Marcus snarled, his own wolf rising to the challenge. Kael Blackthorne. I should have known the rogue alpha would show up to steal my prize. Your prize? Kael's smile was all predator. She was never yours, Marcus. She's always been mine. The power building in Sera's chest reached critical mass. The blood moon pulsed overhead, feeding her abilities, making her skin burn with silver fire. She could feel the very fabric of reality bending around her, could sense the pack bonds that held these wolves together, could feel the corruption in Marcus's stolen authority. Too much. It was too much. Power without control, strength without training. I can't, she gasped, light pouring from her in waves. I can't stop it. Kael took a step toward her, those silver eyes never leaving her face. Let go, sweetheart. I've got you. The last thing Sera saw before the power consumed her was Kael's outstretched hand and the promise in his eyes. Then consciousness fled, leaving her floating in a sea of silver light and the echo of one impossible word. Mine. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 2. Sera woke to the smell of cedar and coffee, underlaid with something wild and dangerous that made her wolf stir with interest. Sunlight streamed through windows she didn't recognize, warming skin that felt raw and tender. She was lying in a bed that wasn't hers, wrapped in sheets that carried a scent she somehow knew but had never encountered before. Pine. Clean mountain air. And beneath it all, the musk of a powerful male. She sat up carefully, wincing as movement pulled at what felt like burns along her arms and chest. The room around her was beautiful in its simplicity, log walls, handcrafted furniture, and windows that offered a view of mountains she'd never seen. This wasn't Marcus's territory. This wasn't anywhere she recognized. Easy. The voice came from a chair beside the bed, deep and warm with just a hint of roughness. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. Your body's still recovering from the power surge. Kael Blackthorne sat watching her with those impossible silver eyes, a steaming mug in his hands and concern written across his scarred features. In daylight, he was even more devastating than he'd been under the blood moon. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and his broad chest was covered by a simple black t-shirt that did nothing to hide the strength beneath. Where am I? Her voice came out as a croak. My territory. About 300 miles from the Thornwood. He set down his mug and moved closer, his movements careful and non-threatening. You're safe here. No one knows this place exists. Safe. The word felt foreign after so many years of looking over her shoulder. What happened after I passed out? Marcus tried to follow when I carried you out. I convinced him that would be a bad idea. Kael's smile was sharp enough to cut. He's missing a few pack members now, and his authority is shaky at best. Your little light show made quite an impression. Memory rushed back, the altar, the betrayal, the power that had exploded from her like a star-going supernova. She looked down at her arms and saw angry red marks where the silver chains had burned her. Let me see those. Kael was already reaching for a first aid kit. Silver poisoning needs to be treated properly. I can heal myself. She started to pull her arm away, then stopped as his fingers brushed her skin. The contact sent electricity racing through her, making her wolf practically purr with satisfaction. Actually, you can't. Not right now. He began cleaning the burns with gentle efficiency. Your body used everything it had during that power surge. You need time to recover. His touch was careful, professional, but she could feel the barely leashed strength in his hands. Could smell his wolf just beneath the surface, wild and dominant and utterly controlled. It should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel safer than she had in years. Why did you save me? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Kael's hand stilled on her arm. Because Marcus had no right to touch what's mine. I'm not yours. But even as she said it, her wolf disagreed vehemently. Aren't you? He looked up then, silver eyes holding hers. Tell me you didn't feel it. The recognition. The pull. She had felt it. From the moment he'd stepped into that clearing, her wolf had been chanting the same word over and over, mate. But she'd thought David was her mate too, and look how that had ended. I felt something, she admitted quietly. But feeling something doesn't make it real. No. But this does. He pressed his hand flat against her chest, right over her heart. The contact sent heat spiraling through her, making her breath catch. Your wolf knows mine, Sera. Just like mine has been calling to yours for months. Months? Kael returned to bandaging her burns, but she could feel the tension in him now. I've been watching your pack since spring. Something felt wrong there, too much fear, too much control. Wolves scattered when they should have been confident. And then I caught your scent on the wind. You were watching me? She should have been angry. Should have felt violated. Instead, all she felt was a strange sort of relief. From a distance. I didn't want to interfere if you were happy there. But happiness. He shook his head. Happiness doesn't smell like desperation and hidden tears. The observation was too close to the truth. She had been desperate, clinging to a life that felt like wearing clothes that didn't fit. Why didn't you approach me sooner? Because I'm not exactly welcome in most territories. His voice turned bitter. Hard to trust a rogue alpha. Especially one accused of patricide. Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. Accused? Kael finished with her bandages and sat back, but she could see the old pain in his eyes. I was supposed to inherit the Shadow Moon Pack, largest territory in North America, over 3,000 wolves. My father, Alpha Victor Blackthorne, was grooming me to take over. He stood and walked to the window, staring out at the mountains. Then someone poisoned him with silver-laced wolfsbane. The evidence pointed to me. But you didn't do it. No. But my brother Nathan made a very convincing case that I did. Amazing how helpful a few planted letters and some well-placed witnesses can be. The bitterness in his voice could have etched glass. The Pack Council voted to exile me rather than execute me. Nathan's mercy, they called it. Sera's heart ached for him. She knew what it felt like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. I'm sorry. Don't be. Exile taught me who I really was. Taught me that a true alpha doesn't need a pack's permission to lead. He turned back to her, and she saw the steel beneath the pain. And it put me in position to save you last night. You make it sound like fate. Maybe it was. He moved closer again, and she caught that wild scent that made her wolf want to roll over and show her belly. Tell me something, how long have you been feeling weak? Tired all the time, like your wolf was sleeping? The question caught her off guard. Years. Since I was 18, maybe 19. Marcus said it was normal for wolves with healing abilities. That we gave so much of ourselves to others, we didn't have energy for our own wolves. Kael's expression darkened. Marcus was lying. What do you mean? I mean someone's been poisoning you. Low doses, probably in your food. Enough to suppress your wolf without killing you. His hands clenched into fists. That's why your power exploded last night. The blood moon ritual broke whatever hold the poison had on you. Sera stared at him, pieces of a horrible puzzle clicking into place. Her constant fatigue. Her wolf's silence. The way she'd never shifted after her 18th birthday, when most wolves shifted regularly. How do you know? Because I've seen it before. It's an old technique, used to keep powerful wolves docile. Usually reserved for prisoners of war. His voice was deadly quiet. Someone wanted you weak and controllable. David. It had to have been David. He'd brought her food, insisted on cooking for her, always so caring and attentive. The thought made her stomach turn. Can you reverse it? Time will reverse it. Your wolf is already fighting back, I can smell her getting stronger. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could feel his warmth. But there's something else. Something you need to know about what you are. You mean the moon goddess bloodline? That's part of it. But there's more. He studied her face carefully. When was the last time you shifted, Sera? Really shifted, not just partial changes? She had to think about it. I was 17. Maybe 18. It's been so long, I can barely remember what it felt like. Would you trust me enough to try? Here, now. I can help you through it. Terror shot through her. What if she couldn't? What if years of suppression had damaged her wolf permanently? What if? Hey. Kael's hand found hers, steady and warm. I'll be right here. If anything goes wrong, I'll pull you back. Something in his voice, in his touch, made her want to trust him. Made her wolf whine with eagerness to finally be free. Okay, she whispered. He helped her to her feet, supporting her when she swayed. Close your eyes. Feel for your wolf. She's there, I can sense her. She's just been sleeping. Sera closed her eyes and reached inward, searching for the part of herself that had been silent for so long. At first, there was nothing. Then, faint as a whisper, she felt her. Her wolf was beautiful. Pure white fur with eyes like liquid gold, elegant and strong and absolutely regal. Not the weak, pitiful creature Sera had imagined, but something magnificent. That's it, Kael murmured. Let her out. Let her run. The shift came easier than it ever had before, like slipping into warm water. One moment she was human, the next she was standing on 4 legs, seeing the world through golden eyes. Kael shifted beside her, his massive black wolf dwarfing her smaller frame. But she didn't feel small. She felt powerful. Complete. For the first time in years, she felt like herself. Beautiful, his wolf's voice whispered in her mind. Perfect. She turned to look at herself in the mirror across the room and froze. There, stark against her pure white fur, was a mark she'd never seen before. A silver crescent moon on her forehead, glowing faintly in the afternoon sunlight. Kael shifted back to human form, his face pale. Sera. What is it? She shifted back as well, reaching up to touch her forehead. In human form, the mark was invisible, but she could still feel it tingling under her skin. That mark. His voice was barely above a whisper. It's the sign of the prophesied Luna. The one who will either save the werewolf realm or destroy it forever. The room spun around her. She sat down hard on the bed, her mind reeling. That's impossible. The prophecy says she'll be born of the moon goddess bloodline, marked with the crescent, and awakened by betrayal and blood. Kael knelt in front of her, his hands gripping hers. She'll have the power to reshape the very nature of what it means to be wolf. I don't want to reshape anything. I just want to live my life. I know. But fate doesn't ask what we want. His thumb stroked over her knuckles, sending warmth through her. The question is, what are you going to do with the power you've been given? Sera looked into his silver eyes and saw her future reflected there, dangerous, uncertain, but no longer empty. No longer alone. I don't know, she admitted. But I think I want to find out. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 3. The crescent moon mark on Sera's forehead tingled as if responding to her words. Kael's hands tightened on hers, and she saw something flicker in his silver eyes, knowledge, pain, and something that looked almost like guilt. There's more you need to know, he said quietly. About your parents. About the night they died. A chill ran down Sera's spine. What about my parents? But before Kael could answer, the mark on her forehead flared with sudden heat. The world around her shifted, colors bleeding away until she was standing in a memory she'd buried so deep she'd convinced herself it was just a nightmare. She was 12 again, hiding in the closet of her childhood bedroom. Through the slats, she could see her mother pacing frantically, one hand pressed to her swollen belly. Elena, we have to leave. Tonight. Her father's voice was urgent, afraid. Marcus knows about the prophecy. He knows what our child will become. The baby isn't due for another month, Victor. Her mother's voice broke on a sob. I can't shift, can't run. Not like this. Then we'll find another way. But we can't stay here. Her father moved to the window, peering through the curtains. He's already killed 3 council members who opposed him. He won't hesitate to. The front door exploded inward. Sera gasped, jerking back to the present. Kael was holding her steady, his face etched with concern and something deeper, recognition. You remember, he said softly. My mother was pregnant. The words felt strange on her tongue. She was pregnant when they died. But I was an only child. There was no baby. You were the baby. Kael's voice was gentle but implacable. Your mother wasn't Elena Ashford. She was Elena Moonweaver, daughter of the High Luna of the Northern Territories. And you weren't born in Marcus's pack. You were born 3 weeks after they died, in a healer's cabin on the border between territories. The world tilted. That's impossible. I remember my childhood. I remember. Suppressed memories. Implanted ones. Marcus had a witch alter your mind when you were young enough for it to take hold. Kael stood and began pacing, his movements sharp with old anger. Your real parents died protecting the secret of who you were. How do you know all this? But even as she asked, she was afraid of the answer. Kael stopped pacing and turned to face her. Because I was there the night they died. 5 years ago, Kael had still been the heir apparent to the Shadow Moon Pack, still believed his brother Nathan loved him, still thought pack politics were a game with rules everyone followed. He'd been returning from a diplomatic mission to the Western Territories when the call came through. Distress signal from the Ashford Pack, wolves under attack, casualties mounting, requesting immediate assistance. Don't go, Nathan had said over the phone. Father says it's not our fight. But Kael had smelled the lie in his brother's words, even through the digital connection. Something was wrong. Something beyond a simple rogue attack. He'd gone anyway. The Ashford territory had been burning when he arrived. Not the clean, controlled fires of a normal raid, but the hungry flames of total destruction. Bodies littered the ground, men, women, children. All dead, all bearing the distinctive wounds of silver weapons. This wasn't a rogue attack. This was an execution. He'd found Victor and Elena Ashford in their home, which had somehow remained untouched by the flames. Victor was already dead, silver poisoning evident in the gray pallor of his skin. Elena was dying, her hands pressed to her belly, eyes wide with terror and determination. Please, she'd whispered when she saw him. "Please, you have to save her." "Save who?" "There's no one else here." "My daughter. She's coming now." Elena's face contorted with pain. "The prophecy, she's the one. She'll either save us all or destroy everything." Kael had delivered the baby himself. They're in that blood-soaked room with death all around them. She'd been perfect, tiny, fierce, with a crescent moon birthmark already visible on her forehead. A child born of prophecy and violence, destined for things he couldn't imagine. "Take her," Elena had gasped, her life ebbing away. "Hide her. Let her grow up normal, safe. Don't let them know what she is until she's strong enough to choose her own path." "Who did this? Who killed your pack?" "Marcus Thorne. He wants the prophecy for himself. Thinks if he controls her, he can control her power." Elena's hand had found his, surprisingly strong for a dying woman. "Promise me. Promise you'll protect her." He'd promised. And then Elena Ashford had died, leaving him holding a newborn who would either save or damn them all. "I took you to a healer I trusted," Kael continued, his voice rough with memory. "Sera Greenthorne, an old wolf who lived alone on the border. She delivered premature babies, helped wolves who couldn't afford pack healers. She agreed to take you in until I could figure out what to do. Sera felt like she was drowning. But I ended up with Marcus anyway. Not by choice." Kael's hands clenched into fists. 3 months later, someone tipped Marcus off about your location. He came with a full hunting party and Sera." Kael's voice broke. "Sera tried to fight them off. She died protecting you. And Marcus took me." "Marcus took you." By then, your hair had darkened from newborn blonde to brown. The birthmark had faded. With the right memory alterations and some creative storytelling, he convinced everyone you were just another orphan pup he'd generously taken in. Kael's eyes burned with fury. "He's been planning this for 12 years, Sera. Everything, the suppression, the poisoning, the careful isolation, it was all to keep you weak until he was ready to use you." The betrayal cut deeper than anything David had done. "You knew. All this time, you knew who I was, and you let me suffer. I was exiled when you were 3 months old. Framed for my father's murder and banished from pack lands on penalty of death." Kael's voice was raw. "I couldn't approach you without risking both our lives. All I could do was watch from a distance and wait for the right moment. 12 years. Sera shot to her feet, power crackling around her like static electricity. 12 years I lived in that place, thinking I was weak, thinking I was nothing. 12 years you could have saved me. If I'd tried to take you sooner, we both would have died." Kael stepped toward her, his own alpha power rising to meet hers. "I had to wait until you were strong enough to survive what was coming." "What was coming?" "This. The awakening. The choice you'll have to make." His silver eyes held hers. "The prophecy doesn't just say you'll save or destroy the werewolf realm. It says you'll do it by choosing between love and power." Before Sera could respond, a howl echoed across the mountains. Then another. And another. The sound was wrong, too organized, too purposeful. Not a hunting song or a territorial call. A war cry. Kael went absolutely still, his head tilted toward the sound. "They found us." "Who found us?" "Marcus." Kael moved to the window, his body coiled with tension. "He's brought an army." Through the glass, Sera could see them, dozens of wolves streaming through the forest, surrounding the cabin. They moved with military precision, cutting off every escape route. At their head, a familiar gray wolf that made her stomach turn. Marcus shifted to human form at the edge of the clearing, flanked by 20 of his strongest warriors. David stood at his right hand, and Sera felt a fresh wave of nausea at the sight of him. "Sera Ashford." Marcus's voice carried easily across the distance. "I know you're in there. Come out now, and I might let the rogue live." "Don't even think about it," Kael growled, but Sera was already moving toward the door. He'll kill you if I don't. He'll kill me anyway. And then he'll take you back and finish what he started. Kael caught her arm. This isn't just about you anymore. If he gets his hands on your power. Sera. Marcus called again. You have 30 seconds to come out. After that, I start killing his pack members. Oh wait, he doesn't have any. Poor, lonely rogue alpha. No one to protect, no one to mourn him. Marcus's laugh was ugly, triumphant. Did he tell you we're already mated, little Luna? Did he mention the blood ritual I performed while you were unconscious? Your blood, mixed with mine, sealed under the blood moon. You belong to me now, body and soul. Sera's knees nearly buckled. That's not possible. But Kael's face had gone ashen. Blood magic. If he used your blood during the ritual, then I'm bound to him. The words tasted like ashes. Forever. Not forever, Kael said fiercely. Blood magic can be broken. But it requires death, Marcus finished, his voice carrying through the window. Either yours or mine, little Luna. And since I'm not planning to die anytime soon. The implications hit Sera like a physical blow. She was trapped. Bound to a man who'd murdered her parents, stolen her life, poisoned her for years. The mate bond with Kael that had felt so right, so perfect, it was meaningless against blood magic. Come out now, Sera. Or I'll make the rogue's death very, very slow. She looked at Kael, seeing her own desperation reflected in his silver eyes. What do we do? We fight, he said simply. And we hope it's enough. Outside, Marcus began to laugh, the sound echoing off the mountains like a death knell. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 4. We fight, Kael repeated, but Sera could hear the desperation beneath his determination. 20 wolves against 2, with her barely recovered from years of suppression and him protecting territory he'd built alone. There has to be another way. The cabin door exploded inward. 3 of Marcus's warriors burst through, shifted and snarling, silver claws extended. Kael moved like lightning, meeting the first wolf mid-leap, his own claws finding throat before the attacker could blink. The second wolf went for Sera, but power erupted from her instinctively, sending the creature flying backward through the window. The third wolf, David, in his brown furred form, circled them both, his eyes fixed on Sera with a hunger that made her skin crawl. Hello, sweetheart, David's voice echoed in her mind through the pack bond that still connected them. Miss me? You poisoned me. Sera's voice was deadly quiet. For years. I kept you safe. Kept you docile. Do you have any idea what you would have become without my help? David's wolf form rippled with barely contained violence. Wild, uncontrollable, dangerous. I saved you from yourself. More wolves poured through the broken door and windows. Kael fought like a man possessed, taking down 2, then 3, but they kept coming. Sera watched him take a silver claw across his ribs, saw blood bloom across his shirt, and something inside her snapped. Enough. The word came out with power behind it, rolling across the battlefield like thunder. Every wolf froze mid-attack, their heads turning toward her in unison. Even Marcus's wolves, bound to their alpha, couldn't resist the command in her voice. You want me, Marcus? Sera stepped over the bodies littering her temporary sanctuary. Then come and take me yourself. Stop hiding behind your pack like a coward. Through the shattered doorway, she could see Marcus shift back to human form, his eyes gleaming with triumph and something darker. Gladly. He stepped into the cabin, and Sera felt the weight of his stolen authority pressing against her mind. The blood magic binding them pulsed like a second heartbeat, trying to drag her to her knees in submission. She refused to bend. You feel it, don't you? Marcus circled her slowly, ignoring Kael's growl of warning. The bond between us. You can fight it all you want, little Luna, but magic doesn't lie. You belong to me now. I belong to no one. Really? Marcus smiled, cold and predatory. Then why can't you attack me? Why does your wolf whine in submission every time I speak? He was right. Every instinct screamed at her to tear his throat out, but the blood magic held her paralyzed. She could feel Kael's rage, his desperate need to protect her, but Marcus's wolves kept him pinned down. That's what I thought. Marcus reached for her face, and she couldn't move to stop him. Don't worry, darling. Once we complete the full mating ritual, you'll understand. Power shared is power doubled. Together, we'll rule every pack in North America. His fingers brushed her cheek, and pain exploded through the blood bond. But beneath the pain, something else stirred. Something that had nothing to do with Marcus's magic and everything to do with the silver-eyed wolf bleeding across the room. The mate bond with Kael, deeper and truer than any blood magic. You're wrong about one thing, Sera whispered. What's that? I'm not alone. She grabbed Marcus's wrist and sent every ounce of power she possessed straight into him. Not the destructive force she'd unleashed at the altar, but something else. Healing energy turned weapon, life force twisted into agony. Marcus screamed and staggered backward, his hands smoking where she'd touched him. The blood magic wavered, just for a moment. It was enough. Kael moved like a force of nature, breaking free from the wolves restraining him and slamming into Marcus with the full weight of his alpha dominance. They went down in a tangle of claws and fury, rolling across the floor in a fight that would end only in death. Around them, the battle resumed with renewed ferocity. Sera found herself back-to-back with Kael as wolves circled them, but something had changed. The power suppression was completely gone now, and she could feel abilities awakening that she'd never dreamed possible. A young wolf, barely more than a pup, took a silver blade to the chest from one of Marcus's warriors. Sera watched him fall, watched the light begin to fade from his eyes, and moved without thinking. Her hands found the wound, and healing energy poured from her like water from a spring. Not the careful, limited healing she'd done as Marcus's pack healer, but something vast and unlimited. The wound closed, the silver poisoning neutralized, the wolf's eyes clearing as life flooded back into him. Impossible, someone breathed. But Sera was already moving to the next fallen wolf, and the next. With each healing, her power grew stronger, more confident. She could feel the connections forming, wolves who owed her their lives, whose loyalty was shifting from their original alphas to her. Protect her, she commanded, and they obeyed without question. The tide of battle began to turn. Marcus's wolves found themselves outnumbered as more of Kael's allies appeared from the forest, rogues and outcasts who'd found sanctuary in his territory. But it wasn't enough. Marcus had brought too many, and they were too well trained. Sera healed another wolf, then another, building her own pack through gratitude and power. But healing took energy, and she could feel herself weakening. Sera. Kael's warning came just in time. She spun to find David lunging for her in wolf form, silver claws aimed at her throat. But instead of dodging, she met his attack head-on, catching his massive form in her arms and speaking a single word. Submit. The command hit David like a physical blow. His wolf form rippled, fighting the compulsion, but her voice carried the weight of prophecy now. He had no choice but to obey. David shifted back to human form and dropped to his knees, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. You can't do this. I'm beta of the... You're nothing. Sera's voice carried across the battlefield, making every wolf present feel the truth of her words. You poisoned your own pack member. You betrayed the woman you claimed to love. You have no honor, no strength, no right to call yourself wolf. She stripped the pack bonds from him with surgical precision, severing his connection to Marcus, to his rank, to everything that made him more than human. David screamed as his wolf was caged, locked away where he could never reach it again. The message was clear to everyone watching: cross the prophesied Luna, and lose everything that made you what you were. But the demonstration of power cost her. Sera swayed, exhaustion hitting her like a wave, and felt strong arms catch her before she could fall. I've got you, Kael murmured against her ear. The simple contact sent fire through her veins. Not the twisted heat of blood magic, but something clean and right and utterly perfect. The mate bond between them flared to life, no longer hidden or suppressed. Kael. I know. His silver eyes held hers, and she saw her own desperate love reflected there. I feel it too. Around them, the battle raged on, but suddenly nothing mattered except the connection forming between them. Deeper than pack bonds, stronger than blood magic, the true mating bond that would tie their souls together for all eternity. Are you sure? He asked, even as his wolf called to hers. Once we do this, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything. The claiming happened in the space between heartbeats. Not the violent dominance Marcus had tried to force on her, but a perfect melding of equals. Kael's mark bloomed on her throat, silver fire against pale skin, while her own power wrapped around him like protective armor. Power exploded outward from their joined hands. Not destructive this time, but creative, a barrier of pure energy that surrounded the entire territory, cutting them off from the outside world. Marcus's remaining wolves found themselves trapped inside with an increasingly powerful enemy, while their reinforcements were locked out. The battle was over in minutes. Sera stood in the center of the carnage, Kael's arm around her waist, and felt the full weight of her destiny settling on her shoulders. She was no longer just Sera Ashford, the broken healer. She was Luna, prophesied and powerful, mated to a rogue alpha who would follow her to the ends of the earth. Marcus lay unconscious near the overturned couch, his remaining wolves surrendering rather than face her wrath. The few who had fought to the death were already cold, their life force spent against power they couldn't comprehend. It's over, Kael said softly. But even as he spoke, Sera felt something wrong. A presence that didn't belong, a loyalty that felt twisted and false. She turned to scan the surviving wolves, trying to identify the source of her unease. Thomas Greycliff stepped forward from the group of Kael's allies, his face set in carefully neutral lines. Sera had met him briefly when she'd first awakened, Kael's lieutenant, his most trusted friend, the rogue who'd helped him build this sanctuary. Congratulations on your mating, Thomas said, his voice perfectly calm. Though I'm afraid it's about to be short-lived. He moved faster than anyone expected, silver blade appearing in his hand as he lunged not for Sera, but for Kael. The blade slid between ribs with practiced precision, finding the spot that would cause maximum damage without immediate death. Kael went down hard, silver poisoning already spreading through his system. Thomas. Sera dropped to her knees beside her mate, healing energy pouring from her hands. But silver poisoning was tricky, heal too fast, and the metal fragments would shift, causing more damage. Sorry, old friend, Thomas said, not sounding sorry at all. But Nathan sends his regards. Nathan. Kael's brother. The one who'd framed him for their father's murder. You've been working for him all along. Kael's voice was thick with pain and betrayal. 5 years of playing the loyal friend. Do you have any idea how exhausting that was? Thomas circled them, blade still ready. Nathan knew you'd eventually surface somewhere, probably with allies. He needed someone close to you, someone you trust completely. Why now? Sera demanded, still working frantically to heal Kael's wounds. Because now you're both exactly where he wants you. Mated, powerful, and completely distracted by your new bond. Thomas smiled, cold and triumphant. Nathan's been planning this moment since the day you were born, little Luna. He knows about the prophecy, about what you're capable of. And unlike Marcus, he knows how to use that power properly. The barrier Sera and Kael had created together began to flicker. With Kael wounded and Sera focused on healing him, they couldn't maintain it. You see, Marcus was always just the opening act, Thomas continued conversationally. A way to awaken your abilities and flush you out of hiding. Nathan's been pulling his strings for years, just like he's been pulling mine. The barrier fell completely. New wolves poured into the clearing, bigger, stronger, better trained than Marcus's pack. At their head came a wolf Sera recognized from Kael's description, Nathan Blackthorne, heir to the Shadow Moon pack and the brother who'd destroyed Kael's life. Nathan shifted to human form, and the family resemblance was unmistakable. Same silver eyes, same strong build, same predatory grace. But where Kael's power felt protective, Nathan's felt hungry. "Hello, brother," Nathan said pleasantly. "Miss me?" Sera felt Kael's wounds finally close under her ministrations, but he was still weak from blood loss. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and facing an enemy who'd been planning this moment for years. "And you must be the prophesied Luna." Nathan's gaze fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. "You're even more beautiful than the report suggested. I can see why Marcus was so obsessed with claiming you." "I'm already claimed," Sera said flatly. "Are you?" Nathan smiled, and it was all teeth. "Blood magic is funny thing, little Luna. It binds you to the first alpha who spills your blood in ritual. But it can be transferred to another alpha if certain conditions are met." Sera's blood turned to ice. "What conditions?" "Death of the original claimant. Pregnancy by the new alpha. And consumption of the prophesied child's heart while still beating." Nathan's smile widened. "Guess which one we're working on right now?" It took a moment for his words to register. Then Sera doubled over as sensation crashed through her, nausea, dizziness, and a strange fluttering deep in her abdomen. No. It was too soon. They'd only just mated. Pregnancies didn't happen that fast, even among wolves. But this wasn't a normal pregnancy. This was the child of prophecy, conceived between a Luna of the goddess bloodline and a true alpha. A child so powerful it could remake the world. A child that was already growing inside her. "There we go," Nathan said with satisfaction. "I can smell it on you now. The next generation of ultimate power, growing in the perfect vessel." He gestured to his wolves. "Take them both. And be careful with the Luna, we'll need her healthy for the next 8 months." Hands reached for Sera from all sides. She fought, but exhaustion from healing and the shock of pregnancy made her movements clumsy. Beside her, Kael struggled to rise, to protect her, but Thomas's blade had done its work too well. The last thing Sera saw before darkness claimed her was Nathan's triumphant face, and the horrible knowledge that she'd played right into his hands. The prophecy wasn't about choosing between love and power. It was about surviving long enough to save the child that would either save them all or destroy everything. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 5. Sera woke to the sound of dripping water and the smell of old stone. Her hands moved instinctively to her abdomen, where she could already feel the impossible life growing within her. 3 days since the mating bond, and the pregnancy was advancing at supernatural speed, her body changing to accommodate a child of prophecy. The cell was carved from solid rock, deep beneath what she recognized as Marcus's stronghold. Silver-lined bars hummed with power, designed to contain even the strongest wolf. But as her fingers traced her belly, she realized the bars weren't meant to keep her in. They were meant to keep everyone else out. Awake at last. Marcus stepped from the shadows beyond her cell, but something was wrong with his movements. They were too fluid, too graceful, as if he were a puppet being operated by a master hand. "The child grows quickly. Faster than we anticipated. Where's Kael?" Sera pushed herself into a sitting position, fighting waves of nausea that had nothing to do with morning sickness. "Alive. For now." Marcus's smile was wrong too sharp, too knowing. "Nathan has him secured upstairs. Though I suspect your mate is planning something foolish. Alphas always do when their mates are threatened." Something in his tone made her study his face more carefully. His eyes held an intelligence that was distinctly feminine, and when he spoke, she caught the faintest echo of another voice beneath his own. "You're not Marcus," she said quietly. "Clever girl." The thing wearing Marcus's face laughed, and for a moment, the illusion slipped. His features shifted, becoming older, more angular, with eyes like dark water. "Though Marcus is still in here, somewhere. Screaming, actually. It's quite amusing." "What are you?" I am Morgatha the Deathless, last of the Shadow Witches, older than your precious prophecy. The creature circled her cell like a predator. And you, little Luna, are going to give me what I've been seeking for 3 centuries. I won't help you. Oh, but you will. Because if you don't, I'll kill your mate, your unborn child, and every wolf in a 100-mile radius. And then I'll find another way to drain your bloodline. Morgatha's stolen face smiled coldly. There are always more ways. Fear clenched Sera's stomach, but beneath it, something else stirred. A presence in her mind that wasn't her own, small but impossibly ancient, carrying knowledge that made her gasp. Mother. The voice was barely a whisper, but it resonated through her soul. She lies. The binding is weaker than she knows. Her child. Her unborn child was already conscious, already trying to help. The impossibility of it should have terrified her, but instead, it filled her with fierce determination. Can you hear me? She thought back. Always. I am both yours and the moon's, daughter of 2 powers. Images flashed through her mind, spells and counterspells, ways to hide her growing abilities from Morgatha's supernatural senses. Hide your strength. Let her believe you're weakening. When the time comes, I will show you how to break her hold. Sera forced her face into lines of defeat and exhaustion. It wasn't difficult, pregnancy and captivity had taken their toll. But now she had purpose beyond mere survival. What do you want from me? She asked, letting her voice crack with despair. Your bloodline, your power, and ultimately, your life. Morgatha leaned against the bars, and Sera caught the scent of ancient death and bitter herbs. But first, we need the child to be born. A child conceived between Luna and Alpha, carrying both bloodlines. Its heart will be the final component in a ritual that will transfer your immortal power to me. The child won't survive the birth. Not this early. Oh, it will survive. For exactly as long as I need it to. Morgatha's smile was monstrous. Children of prophecy are remarkably resilient. And when I'm done with it, I'll have everything I need to become the most powerful being in existence. As the witch walked away, leaving Sera alone in the darkness, she carefully began to explore the abilities her child was teaching her. Ways to sense the magical bindings around the stronghold, to map the network of power that kept this place hidden and protected. And ways to send messages through blood and bone to the mate she could feel searching desperately for her. Above ground, in Nathan's private study, an unlikely alliance was being forged over maps and desperation. You have to understand, Nathan said, pacing behind his desk while Kael sat tensely in the chair across from him. Everything I did, every betrayal, every lie, it was to get close enough to stop this. Kael's hands remained clenched in his lap, silver wounds still healing slowly. You framed me for father's murder. You had me exiled. Because Marcus was already working with something dark. Something that had been manipulating pack politics for decades. Nathan stopped pacing and faced his brother. I needed to be the heir, needed to have access to the resources that would let me investigate. And I needed you gone before you stumbled into something that would get you killed. So you destroyed my life to save it? I destroyed your life to save everyone's. Nathan pulled a thick file from his desk drawer and dropped it in front of Kael. Look at this. Really look. Kael opened the file with reluctance, then felt his breath catch. Photos, documents, witness statements, evidence of supernatural interference in pack affairs going back 50 years. Alphas dying under mysterious circumstances. Bloodlines being systematically eliminated. Children born with prophecy marks disappearing without a trace. Morgatha, Nathan said quietly. She's been working toward this moment for centuries. Weakening the packs, eliminating threats, positioning her puppets in places of power. Marcus was just her most recent tool. How long have you known? Since father's real death. Not the poison everyone thinks killed him, that was staged. He died fighting Morgatha when she tried to possess him instead of Marcus. Nathan's voice was thick with old pain. She killed him because he wouldn't give her what she wanted, information about the prophecy child's location. Kael looked up from the file, seeing his brother clearly for the first time in years. The exile was to protect me. The exile was to protect everyone. I knew you'd never stop fighting if you knew the truth, and you weren't strong enough to face something like Morgatha. Not then. Nathan moved to the window, staring out at the mountains. But Sera changed that. The mating bond awakened something in you, something that might actually be powerful enough to help. Where is she? Where are they keeping her? 3 levels down, in the old ritual chambers. But Kael, it's not just a prison. It's a focus point for dark magic. The entire stronghold has been converted into one massive magical circle, with Sera and the child at its center. Kael shot to his feet. Then we get her out. Now. It's not that simple. The ritual has already begun. If we disrupt it wrong, the backlash could kill her and the baby. Nathan grabbed his brother's arm. But there's another way. A way that might actually let us turn Morgatha's own power against her. What way? Nathan's smile was sharp as a blade. We let the ritual complete. And then we steal it. In her cell, Sera felt the change beginning. It started as a low humming in the stones around her, a vibration that seemed to resonate in her bones. The silver bars grew warm, then hot, as power began flowing through them in patterns she was learning to recognize. It begins, her child whispered in her mind. The witch thinks to use our bond against us. She does not understand what we truly are. What are we? Sera whispered aloud. You are Luna, daughter of the moon goddess, keeper of the old ways. I am something new, not just wolf, not just divine, but a bridge between worlds. The presence in her mind grew stronger, more defined. Together, we can break the chains she thinks bind us. But you must trust me completely. Sera placed both hands on her swelling belly. In just 3 days, the pregnancy had advanced to what should have been months. Her child was growing at supernatural speed, fed by the very power Morgatha sought to steal. I trust you. Then listen carefully. When she comes for the ritual, you must let her believe she's winning. Let her begin the power transfer. But at the moment of convergence, when her guard is lowest, I will show you how to reverse the flow. What if it doesn't work? Then we die fighting, as Luna should. Her child's mental voice carried no fear, only determination. But I do not think we will die today. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Sera quickly composed herself, slumping against the wall and letting exhaustion show on her face. But inside, power coiled like a spring, ready for the moment when she would need it. Marcus, or rather, Morgatha wearing Marcus's face, appeared at her cell door with a retinue of wolves whose eyes held the same wrongness. All puppets, all controlled by the ancient witch's will. Time to go, little Luna. The moon is dark tonight, perfect for the kind of magic we'll be working. The cell door swung open with a screech of protesting metal. Hands reached for her, but Sera allowed herself to be helped to her feet, playing the part of the weakened prisoner. They led her deeper into the stronghold, through corridors carved with symbols that hurt to look at. The very air grew thick with malevolent power, pressing against her skin like oil. The ritual chamber was a vast circular room with a raised dais at its center. Channels had been carved into the floor, filled with something that looked like blood but smelled of midnight and grave dirt. Candles burned with flames that cast no shadows, and the walls were covered in mirrors that reflected things that weren't there. At the center of the dais stood an altar made of black stone, its surface stained with the evidence of centuries of dark rituals. Magnificent, isn't it? Morgatha gestured proudly at her creation. 300 years of preparation, all leading to this moment. When the ritual is complete, I'll have your power, your immortality, and the strength to remake the world as I see fit. Sera was forced to lie on the altar, silver shackles clicking shut around her wrists and ankles. The metal burned her skin, but the pain was distant compared to the cramping that had begun in her abdomen. Something was wrong. The baby. The ritual is forcing the birth. Her child's voice was strained but determined. She needs me born to complete the power transfer. But this gives us our chance. At the moment of birth, when the veil between worlds is thinnest, we can. Agony tore through Sera's body as premature labor began in earnest. Morgatha began chanting in a language that predated human speech, her stolen voice weaving power that made the very air burn. The mirrors around the chamber began to glow, reflecting not the ritual but visions of possible futures, worlds where darkness reigned supreme, where wolves bowed to a power that should never have existed. Yes, Morgatha breathed, raising a ceremonial dagger that seemed to drink in light. Give me the child, Luna. Give me the future. Pain beyond description crashed through Sera as her child fought to be born months before its time. But through the agony, she felt something else, power building, not flowing away from her as Morgatha intended, but gathering like a storm. Now, Mother, her child's voice was strong despite the chaos. Now we show her what a true prophecy looks like. The ritual reached its crescendo as Sera's child crowned, and Morgatha raised the dagger for the killing blow that would seal her victory. That was when everything went wrong. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 6. The ritual chamber's walls exploded inward as Kael and Nathan burst through with the force of an avalanche. Behind them came wolves Sera had never seen, rogues and outcasts, all bearing the scars of wolves who'd fought impossible odds and survived. But they weren't alone. The very air shimmered as Morgatha's true army materialized, dozens of wolves that moved wrong, smelled wrong, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. Reanimated corpses held together by dark magic and the witch's implacable will. You're too late. Morgatha shrieked, the dagger still poised above Sera's swollen belly. The child crowns. The ritual is nearly complete. Kael's roar of fury shook the mountain as he shifted mid-leap, his massive black wolf form slamming into 3 reanimated wolves at once. But for every one he destroyed, 2 more appeared, their dead flesh reforming around his claws. Nathan fought beside his brother with desperate efficiency, silver weapons flashing as he carved through enemies that shouldn't exist. But the undead wolves felt no pain, no fear, and they kept coming. On the altar, agony tore through Sera as her child fought to be born. The premature labor was killing her, she could feel her life force ebbing with each contraction. But through the pain, power was building, hot and bright and utterly different from anything she'd felt before. Now, Mother, her child's voice was strong despite the chaos around them. Let the goddess wake. The birth happened in a rush of blood and silver light. Sera's daughter slipped into the world with a cry that harmonized with powers older than the earth itself. She was perfect, tiny but fierce, with silver white hair and eyes that held the wisdom of ages. And on her forehead, blazing like a star, was the crescent moon mark of prophecy. Morgatha raised the dagger with triumph blazing in her stolen features. Finally. The heart of prophecy, ready to. Light exploded from Sera like a newborn sun. The transformation was instant and overwhelming. Power that had slumbered in her bloodline for generations erupted in full force, washing away the exhaustion of childbirth and replacing it with strength beyond mortal comprehension. The silver shackles binding her to the altar simply ceased to exist, unmade by power that recognized no earthly constraints. Sera rose from the altar cradling her newborn daughter, and every creature in the chamber, living and dead, fell to their knees in instinctive worship. She was Luna incarnate now, daughter of the moon goddess in truth as well as blood. Silver light wreathed her like armor, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of cosmic forces. Release them. The command wasn't shouted but whispered, yet it reached every corner of the chamber. Release every soul you've bound, every wolf you've enslaved, every life you've stolen. Morgatha staggered backward, her control over Marcus's body wavering for the first time in months. Impossible. You're just a wolf. I am Luna. Sera stepped down from the altar, power crackling around her with each movement. I am the moon's daughter, keeper of the ancient ways, protector of the wild places. And you, she fixed Morgatha with eyes that now burned silver white. You are a parasite that has fed on my people for far too long. The witch tried to flee, abandoning Marcus's body like a snake shedding its skin. Her true form was horrifying, ancient beyond measure, more shadow than substance, held together by malice and stolen power. But there was nowhere to run. Sera's power filled every inch of the chamber, cutting off escape routes and severing the magical bindings that had hidden Morgotha for centuries. Around them, the reanimated wolves began to collapse as their animating force was stripped away. But some of Marcus's living pack members, freed from the witch's influence, looked around in confusion and growing horror at what they'd been forced to do. Marcus himself lay gasping on the stone floor, his own mind restored for the first time in months. When he saw Sera standing in blazing glory with her newborn daughter, tears began streaming down his face. "Sera, my God, what have I done? What did she make me do?" "You're free now," Sera said simply, her voice gentler but no less powerful. "The choices you make from this moment forward are your own." Marcus struggled to his feet, swaying but determined. "Then I choose to fight beside you. To make amends for the evil done in my name." The alliance was forged in blood and desperation. Marcus's freed wolves joined Kael's rogues and Nathan's strategic forces in a battle against an enemy that existed beyond death itself. But Morgotha, stripped of her stolen power base, was still ancient and cunning. She rallied her remaining forces, shadows given form, nightmares made manifest, creatures from the spaces between worlds. The battle became a three-way war of living wolves against the undead, with forces of pure darkness thrown into the mix. Sera fought like an avenging angel, her daughter safe in the protective cradle of her arms while silver fire carved through enemies that had terrorized wolves for generations. Every gesture unmade another of Morgotha's abominations, every word of power freed another enslaved soul. But the effort was taking its toll. Even goddess-born power had limits, and she was still recovering from a supernaturally difficult birth. "Sera!" Kael's warning came just in time. Morgotha had abandoned subtlety for direct assault, her shadow form wrapping around Sera like a living nightmare. The witch's touch was ice and despair, draining power as fast as Sera could summon it. "You think being Luna makes you invincible?" Morgotha hissed, her voice like breaking glass. "I have devoured goddesses before. Their power is even sweeter than mortal blood." Sera felt her strength wavering, her divine light dimming as Morgotha fed on her essence. The baby in her arms began to cry, not the wail of a frightened infant, but something that resonated with cosmic forces. That was when Nathan appeared. Kael's brother moved with desperate speed, silver weapons in both hands as he carved through the supernatural darkness surrounding Sera. One blade found Morgotha's essence, causing the witch to shriek and momentarily loosen her hold. "Get away from them!" Nathan roared, pressing his attack even as shadow tendrils wrapped around his limbs. "Foolish boy." Morgotha's laugh was the sound of graves opening. "You think mortal weapons can truly harm me?" "No," Nathan said calmly, even as the shadows began crushing his bones. "But I think they can hold you long enough." He activated something hidden in his weapons, not just silver, but silver blessed by moonlight and bound with his own life force. The blades erupted in clean, pure light that made Morgotha scream in genuine agony. But the effort was consuming Nathan from within. Sera could see his life force flowing into the weapons, burning away everything he was to fuel the cleansing light. "Nathan, no." Kael's anguish was a physical thing as he fought to reach his brother. 5 years of planning, Nathan gasped, his body beginning to fade as the light grew brighter. 5 years of preparing for this moment. "Take care of her, brother. Take care of them both." The blessed silver light reached critical mass and exploded outward, scouring away Morgotha's shadow form and leaving her true essence exposed, a withered husk of malice and stolen years. Nathan collapsed, his life spent, but his sacrifice had given Sera the opening she needed. She raised her free hand and spoke a single word in the old tongue, "Begone." Morgotha's true form began to unravel, centuries of stolen power flowing back to where it belonged. The witch fought against dissolution with everything she had, but divine will backed by prophecy was not something she could resist. "This isn't over." Morgotha screamed as her essence scattered like smoke. "You think you've won, but I'll have the last word. I curse your bloodline, Luna. Any children you bear after this one will be born human unless you sacrifice your godhood forever." The curse hit like a physical blow, weaving itself into the fabric of reality with the witch's dying power. Sera staggered, feeling the magical bonds settle around her bloodline like chains. Then Morgatha was gone, her essence scattered to the cosmic winds, and the ritual chamber fell silent except for the soft crying of a newborn and the ragged breathing of exhausted warriors. Sera knelt beside Nathan's still form, her daughter cradled in one arm while she pressed her free hand to his chest. But even goddess power couldn't bring back the truly dead, and Nathan had given everything to ensure Morgatha's destruction. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Kael, who knelt beside his brother's body with tears streaming down his face. "I can heal wounds, but I can't restore a life freely given." "He knew," Kael said quietly. "He's known since father died that it would probably end this way. He just wanted to make sure it meant something." Marcus appeared beside them, his face haggard but his eyes clear for the first time in months. "It did mean something. He saved us all." He looked at Sera's daughter, who had stopped crying and was now staring at the world with unnaturally intelligent silver eyes. "He saved the future." Around them, the surviving wolves, Kael's rogues, Nathan's forces, and Marcus's freed pack members, began the work of establishing a new order. The old boundaries meant nothing now. They were all just wolves who had survived something that should have destroyed them. But as Sera held her daughter close and felt the weight of Morgatha's curse settling over her bloodline, she knew their trials were far from over. The prophecy was fulfilled, the witch was dead, and her daughter was safe. But the choices ahead would be harder than any battle they just fought. Because sometimes, victory came with a price that was almost too high to pay. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 7. 3 weeks after the battle that had changed everything, Sera stood on the balcony of what had once been Marcus's stronghold, watching the sun set over a world in transition. In her arms, her daughter slept peacefully, tiny fists curled against the soft blanket Nathan had never lived to see her wrapped in. Below in the courtyard, wolves from a dozen different packs worked together to repair the damage from Morgatha's reign of terror. Former enemies shared meals and stories, their children playing together without regard for the old territorial boundaries that had divided them for generations. It should have been perfect. It should have felt like victory. Instead, all Sera could think about was the curse weighing over her bloodline like a sword hanging by a thread. "The Northern Territory sent word," Kael said, stepping onto the balcony behind her. His arms came around her waist, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. "Their alpha wants to meet. Apparently, word of what happened here has spread faster than we expected." "Good news or bad?" "Both. The packs that survived Morgatha's influence want to join our alliance. The ones that stayed hidden." He paused, and she could feel his tension. "They're scared. They think we're too powerful, too different. They want assurances that we won't become the next threat they have to fear." Sera leaned back against his solid warmth, drawing comfort from the mate bond that still amazed her with its strength. "Maybe they're right to be scared. Look what I became in that chamber. Look what our daughter might become. You became exactly what the world needed. What we all needed." Kael pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "And our daughter is perfect, just as she is. Just as she is. But what if she stayed just as she was? What if she never shifted, never ran under the moon, never knew the joy of pack bonds and wild hunts? What if Sera's divine heritage condemned her daughter to a life among wolves but never truly part of their world?" "The Council of Alphas has agreed to convene next month," Kael continued, his voice carefully neutral. "They want to formalize the new treaty structure you proposed. Equal representation for rogues and small packs, protection for the weak, binding arbitration for territorial disputes." It was everything Sera had dreamed of during those long years as Marcus's captive healer, a system where strength served the pack rather than exploiting it, where no wolf had to live in fear of their own leadership. But implementing dreams was proving harder than dreaming them. "Marcus thinks we should hold the meeting here," Kael added. "On neutral ground, where everyone can see what cooperation looks like." Marcus. That was another complication Sera was still learning to navigate. The man who had tormented her for years was now Kael's beta, working 18-hour days to undo the damage his possessed actions had caused. She wanted to hate him, but it was hard to maintain hatred for someone who looked haunted every time he saw her daughter. "How is he doing?" she asked. "Better. The nightmares are fading, and the pack bonds are solidifying." Thomas's betrayal shook everyone, but Marcus is proving he can lead without coercion or fear. Kael's voice held a note of surprise. "He's actually quite good at it when he's not being controlled by an ancient witch." "And you trust him?" "I trust his guilt. He'll spend the rest of his life trying to atone for what Morgatha made him do. That makes him reliable, if not exactly friend material." The baby stirred in Sera's arms, making soft sounds that weren't quite human and weren't quite wolf. At 3 weeks old, she should have been helpless, barely aware of the world around her. Instead, her silver eyes tracked movement with unnatural intelligence, and sometimes Sera caught her studying the adults around her as if she understood every word they spoke. The mark of prophecy on her forehead had faded to invisibility, but Sera could still feel it there, a reminder of what her daughter was meant to become. If she could become it. "Kael," Sera said quietly, "what if I made the wrong choice? What if I should give up the goddess power to ensure she can shift? Then we'll love her exactly as she is." His voice was steady, absolute. "Human, wolf, or something in between, she's our daughter. That's all that matters. But the pack will follow your lead. They always have." Kael turned her gently to face him, his silver eyes serious in the fading light. "You united rogues and outcasts into something stronger than any traditional pack structure. You showed them that power without compassion is just tyranny with better marketing. They trust you, Sera. Whatever choice you make, they'll support. Even if I choose to remain Luna? Even if that means staying different, staying apart? Even then." He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs stroking over her cheekbones. "I fell in love with you before I knew what you were. The goddess power, the prophecy, the cosmic significance, that's all extra. What matters is that you're brave and kind and willing to fight for what's right. That's the woman I want to spend eternity with." Tears burned behind Sera's eyes. She'd never expected to find love, especially not a love that felt this complete, this accepting. But the weight of responsibility pressed down on her like a physical force. "The other packs need to see that we're not a threat," she said. "If I keep these powers, if I remain something more than wolf, then you'll prove that power doesn't have to corrupt. That someone can be strong without being cruel." Kael's smile was soft, understanding. "But the choice has to be yours, Sera. No one else can make it for you." A knock at the balcony door interrupted them. Marcus stood in the doorway, his face carefully neutral but his eyes holding a mixture of determination and lingering shame. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said formally. "But there's been a development." Sera's grip tightened on her daughter. "What kind of development?" "A good one, I hope. We've received visitors. Elena Stormwind and her mate from the Pacific Coast Pack, along with delegations from 3 other territories. They're requesting an audience with Luna." Marcus's use of her title was careful, respectful. "They want to discuss forming a formal alliance structure." "So soon after Morgatha's defeat?" "Word travels fast in our world. What you did in that ritual chamber, freeing enslaved wolves, destroying an enemy that had terrorized packs for generations, it's the kind of legend that spreads like wildfire." Marcus stepped fully onto the balcony, his movements careful and non-threatening. "They're calling you the Luna Reborn, the one who brought balance back to our world." The title made Sera uncomfortable. She didn't want to be a legend, she just wanted to protect her family and build something better than what had come before. "What do they want specifically?" "A new compact. Something that acknowledges your authority while establishing clear boundaries for how that authority is used." Marcus pulled a rolled parchment from his jacket. Elena brought a draft proposal. "It's actually quite thoughtful." Sera accepted the document with her free hand, scanning the careful script. The proposed treaty was indeed thoughtful, establishing her as a sort of supernatural arbiter while limiting her ability to interfere in internal pack affairs without invitation. It was a framework that could work, if she chose to keep her powers. There's something else, Marcus added quietly. They brought gifts for the baby. Traditional offerings for a child of prophecy. He hesitated. Including moonstones that are supposed to help strengthen the connection between wolf and human sides. Hope flared in Sera's chest before she could stop it. Do they work? The stories say they do. But honestly, no one's had a chance to test them on a child like yours. Sera looked down at her daughter, who was awake now and watching the conversation with those unnaturally intelligent eyes. So small, so perfect, so completely dependent on choices her mother was still struggling to make. I need time to think, Sera said finally. Tell Elena and the others I'll meet with them tomorrow morning. And Marcus? Yes? Thank you. For everything you're doing to make this work. Marcus's face tightened with emotion. It's the least I can do. After what she made me do to you, to your parents. He stopped, collecting himself. I know I can never fully atone for that. But I can spend the rest of my life trying. After Marcus left, Sera and Kael stood in comfortable silence, watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. The baby dozed in Sera's arms, occasionally making soft sounds that tugged at her heart. Whatever you decide, Kael said eventually, we'll make it work. We'll build something good here. Something that protects wolves like her whether they can shift or not. I know. Sera pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead, right where the prophecy mark lay hidden. I just wish I knew what the right choice was. That was when it happened. The baby in her arms suddenly went rigid, her back arching as power flowed through her tiny form. For a terrifying moment, Sera thought something was wrong, that Morgatha's curse was manifesting in some horrible way. Then light began to emanate from the baby's skin, not the harsh silver of goddess power, but something warmer, softer. Golden light that felt like sunlight and pack bonds and unconditional love. The transformation happened in the space between heartbeats. One moment Sera was holding her human daughter, the next, a tiny golden wolf pup was looking up at her with the same intelligent silver eyes. Kael's sharp intake of breath echoed her own shock. How is that possible? The curse. True love breaks all curses. The words came from Sera's lips, but she wasn't sure where they originated. Some deep knowledge, some understanding that went beyond conscious thought. Morgatha's magic was built on hatred and fear. But this. She looked down at the golden pup, who yipped once before shifting back to human form with casual ease. This is built on something she never understood. The curse was broken. Not through sacrifice or magical intervention, but through the simple, profound power of a family that loved unconditionally. Sera felt the divine power still flowing through her, but it no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a choice, one she could make freely, without fear for her daughter's future. So, Kael said, his voice thick with wonder and relief, what now? Sera smiled, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Now we build the future. All of us together. In her arms, their daughter gurgled happily, completely unaware that she'd just rewritten the laws of magical curses through the simple act of being loved. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Chapter 8. 6 months later, Sera stood in the central courtyard of what had once been Marcus's stronghold and was now the heart of something unprecedented in werewolf history. The morning sun streamed through windows that had been enlarged to let in more light, illuminating wolves from 17 different packs working together as if they'd been family for generations. To her left, the new healing center bustled with activity. Wolves who had been cast out from traditional packs for being too weak, too different, or simply too inconvenient now found purpose tending to others. The building itself had been redesigned with Sera's input, multiple treatment rooms, a library of herbal knowledge, and a nursery where packed children could play while their parents received care. To her right, the training grounds echoed with the sounds of young wolves learning combat not as dominance but as protection. Marcus led a group of teenagers through defensive formations while Kael worked with the adults on pack coordination. The sight of the two alphas working in perfect synchronization still amazed her sometimes. Mama, look. Sera turned toward the voice, smiling as her 6-month-old daughter pointed excitedly at a butterfly that had landed on the fountain's edge. Luna, they'd finally chosen the name last month, could speak in short sentences despite her age, another quirk of her prophetic heritage that the pack had learned to accept as normal. Very pretty, sweetheart. Sera scooped up her daughter, marveling again at how perfectly Luna fit in her arms. The golden wolf pup she'd become during moments of excitement was just as adorable as her human form, and her ability to shift at will had made her the favorite of every wolf in the territory. Sera. Marcus approached from the training grounds, his face holding an expression she'd learned to recognize over the past months, careful hope mixed with lingering uncertainty. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Behind him walked a woman Sera had seen around the healing center but hadn't formally met. She was small and delicate, with auburn hair and kind brown eyes, but there was steel beneath her gentle exterior. One of the rescued wolves, if Sera remembered correctly, found during a raid on a trafficking operation 3 months ago. This is Rebecca Ashwood, Marcus said, his voice carefully controlled but his scent betraying his nervousness. She's been working in the children's wing of the healing center. Rebecca stepped forward with quiet confidence. Luna. Sera. I wanted to thank you personally for what you've built here. For the first time in 5 years, I feel safe. The healing center is everyone's achievement, Sera replied, but she was watching Marcus out of the corner of her eye. His entire posture had changed in Rebecca's presence, more protective, more aware, but also more at peace than she'd ever seen him. Rebecca, Marcus said quietly, I was wondering if you'd like to join me for dinner tonight. There's something I need to discuss with you. The blush that bloomed across Rebecca's cheeks was answer enough, but she nodded with dignity. I'd like that very much. As they walked away together, Sera felt a warm satisfaction settle in her chest. Marcus deserved happiness after everything he'd endured, and Rebecca was exactly the kind of strong, compassionate woman who could help him continue healing from Morgatha's influence. They're good for each other, Kael said, appearing at her side with the silent grace that still made her pulse quicken. He's been different since she arrived. More settled. More himself, Sera agreed. The man he would have been if Morgatha had never touched his life. Kael wrapped his arms around both her and Luna, and for a moment they stood in comfortable silence, watching their unconventional pack go about the business of building something better than anyone had thought possible. The Northern Alliance sent their response, Kael said eventually. 12 more packs want to join the compact. They're calling it the Luna Accords now. That's wonderful news. But Sera could hear something in his voice. What's the bad news? The Traditionalist Coalition is planning a formal challenge. They'll be here next week with representatives from the Old Guard packs. Apparently, they think our radical experiment has gone far enough. Sera sighed. She'd been expecting this for months. Change always met resistance, especially change that threatened established power structures. How many packs? 8, maybe 10. But they're some of the largest territories on the continent. If they unite against us. Kael's grip tightened slightly. We could be looking at war. No. Sera's voice carried a note of divine authority that made several nearby wolves look up. There won't be another war. Too many have died already. They're not exactly interested in negotiation, love. Their message was pretty clear: submit to traditional pack hierarchy or face the consequences. Luna chose that moment to shift into her golden wolf form and bark excitedly at a bird flying overhead. The sound drew smiles from every wolf within hearing, a reminder of what they were all fighting to protect. Then we'll show them what we've built here, Sera said finally. And we'll let them decide if they want to be part of the future or prisoners of the past. 1 week later, the delegation arrived. Sera stood on the main balcony, Luna in her arms, watching the approaching convoy of vehicles wind up the mountain road. Behind her, nearly 200 wolves from dozens of packs had gathered, not for war, but as a demonstration of unity that would have been impossible under the old system. Impressive showing, Kael murmured beside her. Though I count at least 50 warriors in that convoy. They brought an army to a peace negotiation, Marcus observed, his hand resting protectively on Rebecca's shoulder. That tells us everything we need to know about their intentions. The vehicles stopped in the main courtyard, and Sera watched with interest as the traditional alphas emerged. They moved like the old guard leaders they were, confident in their authority, dismissive of anything that challenged their worldview, certain that might made right. At their head was Victor Ironwood, alpha of the Great Lakes territory and one of the most conservative leaders on the continent. He was a big man, built like a linebacker, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. "Luna Sera," he called up to the balcony, his voice carrying easily across the courtyard. "I am Victor Ironwood, speaking for the Traditionalist Coalition. We've come to discuss your innovations." "Then let's discuss them," Sera replied calmly. "But first, let me show you what we've accomplished here." She descended to the courtyard with Kael and her inner circle, Luna riding contentedly on her hip. The contrast between the two groups was stark, Sera's people relaxed and confident, the traditionalists tense and ready for violence. "This is our healing center," Sera began, gesturing toward the bustling building. "Staffed by wolves who were rejected by traditional packs for various reasons. In 6 months, they've treated over 1,000 patients and saved dozens of lives that would have been lost under the old system." Victor's expression was dismissive. "Charity work. Admirable, but hardly revolutionary. Is it charity when former rogues become productive members of society? When abandoned omegas develop into skilled healers? When traumatized children learn to trust again?" Sera's voice remained level, but power hummed beneath her words. "What we've built here isn't charity, Alpha Ironwood. It's evolution." Evolution toward what? A world where the weak rule the strong? Where natural hierarchy is abandoned for feel-good policies that ignore reality? Victor stepped closer, his own alpha dominance pushing against hers. "The old ways exist for a reason. Strength leads, weakness follows. That's how we've survived for millennia. And how many wolves have died needlessly in those millennia?" Marcus spoke up, his voice steady despite facing wolves who'd probably labeled him a traitor. "How many children grew up afraid of their own pack leaders? How many talented individuals were discarded because they didn't fit narrow definitions of strength?" Marcus Thorne, Victor's voice dripped contempt. "The fallen alpha who killed his own pack members and now preaches about compassion. Your opinion carries little weight here." "Those deaths weren't his choice," Rebecca stepped forward, her small frame radiating fierce protectiveness. "Marcus was possessed, controlled by an ancient witch who'd been manipulating pack politics for generations. The fact that he's worked so hard to atone for actions that weren't truly his own speaks to his character, not against it." "Convenient excuses," another traditionalist alpha muttered. That was when Luna decided to make her opinion known. The 6-month-old shifted into her golden wolf form and let out a howl that was entirely too large and powerful for such a small creature. The sound carried harmonics that resonated in every wolf present, speaking directly to their deepest instincts. Every traditional alpha took an involuntary step backward. "Your daughter," Victor said, his voice now holding a note of uncertainty. "She carries the prophecy mark." "She is the prophecy," Sera corrected. "Born of Luna and Alpha, conceived in love, raised in a pack that values cooperation over domination. She represents what our people could become if we're brave enough to change. A child who can shift at 6 months old, who howls with the voice of the moon itself." Victor's expression had shifted from dismissive to calculating. Such power could be dangerous if not properly controlled. Controlled by whom? Kael's voice carried a warning edge. By alphas who think might makes right? By leaders who would cage a child's gifts because they threaten the status quo? By those wise enough to understand the dangers of unchecked power, Victor replied coldly. "Your mate has become something beyond normal wolves. Her abilities could destabilize everything we've built. Everything you've built." Sera's patience was finally wearing thin. A system where the strong prey on the weak, where innovation is discouraged, where wolves live in fear of their own leaders. Yes, I suppose our approach would destabilize that. The tension in the courtyard was rising, wolves on both sides beginning to shift restlessly. Sera could feel the situation balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong word, one aggressive move, and the peaceful negotiation would become the war she'd hoped to avoid. That was when she made her choice. Sera handed Luna to Kael and stepped into the center of the courtyard, power beginning to flow around her like visible light. Not the harsh divine radiance she'd wielded against Morgotha, but something warmer, more controlled. The mark of Luna appeared on her forehead, glowing softly in the afternoon sun. "You want to see unchecked power?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying to every corner of the territory. "Let me show you what unchecked power actually looks like." She raised her hand, and every wolf in the courtyard, traditional and progressive alike, felt the weight of true dominance pressing down on them. Not the crude alpha authority they were accustomed to, but something cosmic in scope. The power to command not just wolves, but the very forces that governed their existence. For one terrifying moment, every wolf present understood exactly how insignificant they were compared to what Sera had become. Then she let the power fade, returning to the warm, approachable woman they knew. "That is unchecked power," she said calmly. "I could command every one of you, could reshape your very nature with a thought, could enforce my will on every pack on the continent. But I don't. Instead, I use these abilities to heal, to protect, to build something better than what came before. That choice, that restraint, is what makes the difference between a leader and a tyrant." Victor and his traditionalists stood in stunned silence, finally understanding the scope of what they were dealing with. "The Luna Accords offer partnership, not subjugation," Sera continued. "Join us in building a better future for all wolves, or remain trapped in a past that served only the few. But don't mistake our desire for peace as weakness. We are stronger than you know, more unified than you imagined, and more committed to protecting our way of life than you can possibly comprehend." She gestured to the wolves surrounding them, dozens of packs, hundreds of individuals, all standing together not in fear but in solidarity. "The choice is yours, Alpha Ironwood. But choose wisely. The old world is ending whether you accept it or not. The only question is whether you'll help us build something better in its place." Victor looked around the courtyard, seeing perhaps for the first time the genuine loyalty and happiness in the faces surrounding him. Wolves who had found purpose, children who played without fear, mates who had discovered love in unexpected places. When he finally spoke, his voice held a grudging respect that hadn't been there before. "We'll need to discuss this with our respective packs. The traditionalist way isn't easily abandoned." "Take all the time you need," Sera replied graciously. "But remember, the future is coming whether you're ready or not. We'd rather have you with us than against us." As the traditionalist delegation prepared to leave, several of the alphas approached individual members of Sera's coalition, beginning quiet conversations that might someday lead to something greater than anyone had dared hope. "Think they'll come around?" Marcus asked, watching the vehicles disappear down the mountain road. "Some will," Sera said, taking Luna back from Kael's arms. "Others won't. But the choice is made, we're not going back to the old ways." As the sun set over their transformed territory, Sera stood with her mate and daughter, surrounded by a pack that had chosen love over fear, cooperation over domination, hope over despair. The moon rose full and bright above them, blessing their efforts with silver light. The future had never looked brighter. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. 5 years later. The full moon hung like a silver coin above the great gathering, casting its light over a scene that would have been impossible to imagine just 5 years ago. Wolves from across the globe had come to celebrate the autumn equinox at what had once been Marcus's stronghold and was now the beating heart of a revolution that had transformed their entire world. Sera stood on the familiar balcony, watching the celebration unfold below with a contentment that still surprised her sometimes. In her arms, her youngest son Thomas, named for Nathan's sacrifice, dozed peacefully despite the joyful chaos surrounding them. At 18 months, he was already showing signs of inheriting his sister's easy shifting abilities, though his wolf form was silver-black like his father's rather than Luna's distinctive gold. "Mama." 4-year-old Michael came racing across the courtyard in his brown wolf pup form, chasing a butterfly with the single-minded determination that characterized all his pursuits. He shifted back to human form without breaking stride, a skill that still amazed visitors from territories where children didn't shift until their teens. "Careful, sweetheart," Sera called, though her warning was unnecessary. The entire territory was pack-bonded now, which meant every adult present would protect every child as if they were their own. Luna says she can catch it with her mind, Michael announced breathlessly. But I think that's cheating. Sera followed his gaze to where her eldest daughter sat cross-legged in the center of a group of children from a dozen different packs. At 5.5, Luna had grown into her prophecy with remarkable grace, her healing abilities manifesting as an uncanny knack for soothing hurt feelings and minor injuries with just a touch. But lately, she'd been displaying other gifts too, the kind of alpha presence that made other children naturally look to her for leadership. She's not using her mind, Sera explained to Michael. She's using patience. Sometimes waiting is more effective than chasing. As if to prove her point, the butterfly landed delicately on Luna's outstretched finger. The children around her gasped in delight, and Luna's smile lit up the entire courtyard. How does she do that? Michael asked, genuinely puzzled. Magic, said a familiar voice behind them. Sera turned to find Kael approaching with Marcus and Rebecca, the latter glowing with the particular radiance of a woman 6 months pregnant with her first child. The sight filled Sera with quiet happiness. Marcus deserved the family he'd found with Rebecca, and their upcoming son would be raised in a world far kinder than the one his father had known. It's not magic, Sera protested, though she was smiling. It's just Luna being Luna. Same thing, Kael said, wrapping his free arm around her waist. Even after 5 years of marriage, 3 children, and the countless challenges of rebuilding their world, the mate bond between them still sparked with every touch. Our daughter has a gift for making the impossible look effortless. She gets that from her mother, Marcus observed, his voice holding the deep respect that had replaced his earlier fear and guilt. Though I suspect the alpha confidence is pure Blackthorne. Speaking of which, Rebecca added, Elena Stormwind wanted me to tell you that the Pacific Coast Alliance has officially adopted the Luna Accords as their governing charter. That makes 43 territories now operating under the new system. 43 territories. When they'd started, Sera had hoped to influence maybe a handful of packs. Now, their model of cooperative leadership and protection for the vulnerable had spread across 6 continents. The old system of might makes right wasn't completely gone, but it was dying a slow, inevitable death as wolves saw the prosperity and happiness that the new way brought. Any word from the European Council? Kael asked. They're still debating, but Victor Ironwood thinks they'll come around within the year. Apparently, the success stories are becoming too obvious to ignore. Marcus's smile held just a hint of satisfaction. The former traditionalist Alpha had become one of their most effective ambassadors, his conversion lending credibility to their cause among conservative packs. Down in the courtyard, the celebration was reaching its peak. Wolves from territories that had been enemies for generations shared food and stories around bonfire pits. Children who would have been raised as rivals played together as naturally as siblings. Mates from different packs had found each other and formed bonds that transcended old territorial boundaries. Mama, look. Luna's voice carried clearly across the space between them. She was standing now, surrounded by the other children, and her hands were glowing with the soft silver light that meant her healing abilities were active. But instead of tending to an injury, she was doing something Sera had never seen before, weaving light between her fingers like visible music. That's new, Kael murmured, and Sera could hear the mixture of pride and concern in his voice. She's fine, Sera said, though she was watching carefully. She's just exploring. The light Luna was weaving began to take shape. Flowers made of moonbeams, butterflies crafted from starlight, a miniature moon that bobbed and danced above the children's heads. It was beautiful, harmless, and absolutely unprecedented. My granddaughter is quite remarkable, said a voice Sera had never heard before. They turned to find an elderly woman standing in the balcony doorway, ancient, elegant, with silver-white hair and eyes that held the depth of centuries. Power radiated from her like heat from a forge, but it felt warm and protective rather than threatening. Grandmother Moon, Sera breathed, instinctively knowing who this was despite never having met her. Hello, dear child. The moon goddess smiled, and her face held an echo of Sera's own features. I thought it was time we met properly. You've done such beautiful work with the gifts I gave your bloodline. I had help, Sera said, glancing at Kael and their friends. The best leaders always do. That's what makes them worthy of the power they wield. The goddess moved to the balcony's edge, her gaze fond as she watched Luna entertaining the children below. Your daughter is going to be extraordinary, you know. The perfect blend of divine wisdom and mortal courage, alpha strength and healing compassion. She'll lead our people into an age we can barely imagine. Will she be happy? Sera asked, the Eternal Mother's question. She'll be loved, the goddess replied. By you, by her father, by the family you've built here, and eventually by a mate who will see her true worth. And in the end, isn't that what happiness really is? A commotion in the courtyard drew their attention. Luna had apparently decided the light weaving demonstration was over and had gathered all the children for some new game. They were running in a complex pattern around the bonfire pits, laughing with pure joy as they chased each other in what looked like organized chaos. Tag across 12 different packs, Rebecca observed with amusement. Only Luna could turn a simple game into a diplomatic exercise. She's building bridges, the moon goddess said approvingly. Teaching them that pack boundaries are artificial constructs, that the wolf community is strongest when it works as one family. These children will grow up thinking of cooperation as normal, of unity as natural. They'll be the leaders who finish what you started here. As if hearing her words, Luna looked up at the balcony and waved at her mother. Her smile was radiant, her happiness infectious, and in that moment Sera knew with absolute certainty that every choice she'd made, keeping her goddess powers, building this new world, choosing love over fear, had been exactly right. We did it, she said softly, hardly daring to believe it. We actually did it. You changed everything, Kael agreed, pressing a kiss to her temple. You saved us all. We saved each other, Sera corrected, watching their daughter race joyfully through a crowd of children whose parents had once been mortal enemies. All of us, together. The moon reached its zenith, bathing the celebration in silver light that seemed to bless every wolf present. In that light, boundaries disappeared, old wounds healed, and the future stretched ahead bright with infinite possibility. Luna's laughter rang out across the courtyard like music, and the sound carried on the night wind to every corner of their transformed world, a promise that love would always triumph over fear, that cooperation would always defeat dominance, and that under the moon's blessing, all wolves could finally come home. The prophecy was complete, the future was secure, and the greatest love story ever told was just beginning. The end. If you are enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.